Hello, welcome to another episode of the I Am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel podcast. This will be episode 232, which is
Wow.
no mean feat. So, and today I have my lovely friend Suzanne Ulph on. If you are a new listener, welcome. If you are a returning guest, if you're a returning guest, no, a returning listener, thank you so much for joining us. This is how today's chat is going to go, all over the place. Remember to like, share, follow, all that stuff. If you hear anything that Suzanne is talking about today and you think, I know somebody that needs to hear this, please do share it with them. So, Suzanne, welcome. Please take over the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on.
My pleasure. So, why don't you do a wee intro, let people know who you are and what it is that you do?
Okay, hi everyone. I am Suzanne. My business is The Curious Wolf. I'm primarily a book coach, so I help people write books effectively. So that can be a mix of business books or novels or all sorts of different things. But before I started doing that, I was really quite involved in the world of writing for Wellbeing. So I've brought a lot of that time with me into the way that I work with authors and to the wider population as well. So that kind of centers around lots of different things, but one of the core ideas is journaling. Because I do feel that if people actually can get back in touch with writing every day, it's amazing how much that helps in lots of different ways. It particularly helps writers be able to then feel more comfortable when they're writing, but it helps everyone in some ways as well.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I am no longer in the habit of. So when I wrote my book back in 2016, I was writing to my email list every single day, and people were saying to me, "Oh, this stuff that you're writing in your emails, you should put into a book." So that's what I did,
Oh,
and
brilliant.
um, that came out just before I got diagnosed with Crohn's, and
Yeah.
then everything went to shit, quite
Yes.
literally.
I know that feeling.
I do know that feeling. And it's been something that I've really struggled to get back into is writing. Like
Mm,
I'll get journal prompts every now and again, and very occasionally I'll be like, I need to write about this and to clear stuff out.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
did morning pages for quite a long time
Hmm.
after my husband left um, back in 2010, and I used to just wake up and scroll, 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 and I found that really therapeutic and a really useful way of clearing. And then for whatever reason, I have just become resistant to it. So
I
Suzanne,
know.
how do I get back into it?
It's funny, isn't it? So to go back to what you were saying about, you would write and it just felt like it would clear things. I think that's the case. I think that's what the magical part of journaling is, that you start writing, you think you're going to write about one thing, and then your subconscious takes over and you write about something completely different, or you see an insight into yourself, or you just start thinking about things in a different way. And that's what makes it, I think, such a powerful exercise, because it's doing the inner work, and our entire day is spent looking outwards all the time. It's really hard for us to look inwards, and we need to do that more and more and more, to just have the kind of benefit of feeling connected with ourselves, which is at the root of, contentment and happiness and purpose and all of these kind of different things. But we don't do that. So, to me, journaling is a way in to that. So, but yes, two major problems arise with it, I think. The first is that people don't know what to write, or they think that they might get it wrong. And that is something that I want to blow out of the water, because you can never get it wrong, no matter what you write. Even if you write the same sentence 10 times, it's not wrong. The act of physically actually writing and connecting with that inner mind is so, so important. So it doesn't matter what you write at all. And secondly, keeping up the habit of it. I know it's a really difficult one. I feel the same about meditation. I know it's really, really good for me. I know that I should do it every day. I don't like using the word should, because I think that puts a barrier on it. But, I know it would be really beneficial to do every single day. When was the last time I meditated? Maybe a couple of months ago. And you think, why? Why do I feel a block about that? It feels like I haven't got time for this. I'm busy. And then you think, that's absolutely ridiculous. You can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't take up much time at all, and it makes a difference. So that's why I actually started a daily journaling prompts club for people, because I kept finding that people were saying really want to journal, don't know what to journal, or keep forgetting about it. So this is a really, really basic way of doing it. So it's a WhatsApp broadcast chat. So there's no chatter, there's not lots of pings, lots of, different things. Basically, every morning there's a journaling prompt that's sent to you. And the
Mhm.
feedback from that has been really, really good so far. I think we're in our third month now, and the feedback has been great because not everybody has time to journal every single morning or afternoon or daytime. Whenever they go onto it, it's the last one that's there. Um, but even just thinking about it is a step in the right direction, and it might be that it leads to a longer session at the weekend when you've got a bit of time and you can write about different bits or the bits that really spoke to you. And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating seeing the feedback from people and how it's helping them. To just connect a bit more with not just who they are just now, but who they were. And I think that's what we very often forget about. The strength that we had as children, as teenagers, our worldview, who we were in our early 20s, all the rest of it. These people are really important. And, bringing them out, connecting with them, reminding what actually makes us tick, as opposed to our families, our friends, all the people around us, what we've grown into, what our jobs do, having a mortgage, all that kind of nonsense. Getting away from all of that and into who we actually were is really powerful. Really, really powerful.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that you don't make time to meditate, but see if you're right, and then everything that you've just said there
Ah.
is what like a lot of the meditation teachers who practice the sitting quietly, getting internal, that's what they talk about connecting with, but you're connecting with it in a completely different way.
Yeah,
So,
I suppose that's true. Yeah.
and for other people, it might be painting or it might be going for a walk or like
Mhm.
there's playing music, like there's so many different ways
Hmm.
to quote unquote meditate
Hmm.
that for you beating yourself up saying, I don't make the time for it. But if you're sitting down
Yeah.
and writing every day, then you're probably doing way more meditation than a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. I hadn't actually thought of it that way. And I suppose walking my dogs every day as well, then that's that time to just kind of calm the mind and not have all the pings and notifications and business stuff going on. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it definitely is. Um, oh, so many things that you said there. I was, oh yeah, that's why I don't do that anymore. Yeah, that's why. And this is not going to be a therapy session for Jen, but
Well, it's your fits. Let's go for it.
it's not going to be a therapy session. But I will share a couple of insights that I had when you were speaking there
Mhm, mhm.
that resonate with somebody else. So when I got unwell, there's a big part of that I want to disconnect from myself because,
Absolutely.
like, as you know yourself, like the pain that you
Mhm,
experience, the distress, the all
mhm,
the stuff that goes along with it, the hospital appointments, the medications, the blah 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 blah, and you
mhm.
just cannot you want to disassociate because that's how you're getting through that process.
Yeah.
So then going internal and going deep with that can feel like a mountain to climb. It's just like that feels like far too much because there's so much other stuff going on in life.
Mhm.
What would you then suggest if somebody's listening to this and thinking, oh, that's me? What would you suggest to them to be able to maybe see it as a way for healing? Because you've used journaling a lot in your own healing path.
Yeah, that it's a really interesting question, and it's brought something back to me that I'd forgotten about. So I have, like you, I have Crohn's as well. I had my first surgery for it back in 1998, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just in my 20s at that point. And it was quite a shock, as you can imagine. And I had to have a fairly large section of my intestine removed, and they had said before I went in I would have a stoma when I came out. I actually didn't have one. They actually managed to do it without that, which was really good. But I didn't know that when I was coming around from the anaesthetic. And the anaesthetic, first time I'd ever had that kind of thing, took a long time to come out of. And unbeknownst to me, because I have no memory of this, but apparently I demanded from the nurses a piece of paper and a pen. And apparently, and I've still got it, and I wrote loads and loads and loads. And it started off with like questions for the consultant. And it ended up in just being just everything that was going through my head about where I was at that point in time and how I was dealing with the fact that, in your early 20s, to be told you've got a disease that you'll have for the rest of your life is a really, really difficult thing to deal with. And at that point, mine was seen as being so severe that I was told that I wouldn't be on solid foods by the end of my 20s. I would never be able to work full time. All sorts of different things that the severity of it was at, which is none of which is proven to be true because I think, you know, you can you can't control illness, but the way that you respond to it makes a difference to the path that that illness takes. So, as you know, I'm working more than full time and eating happily away and all the rest of it. But anyway, um, so all those kind of things. So basically, at that point, without knowing it, I was using journaling to work through all of that angst, you know? Um, and I didn't write about it after that, which is a strange thing, but it shows that the subconscious was pushing me to do that. And when you look at it, I mean, I look like I was really drunk or something. My writing's going right down the page. You can barely make much of it out at all, you know, but it's pages and pages and pages of it. So that tells me that whether we are resistant to it or not, it is something that's really, really helpful and really good for you. And I guess part of it is, um, it's like going out and exercising. You might not feel like it, but you know it's going to do you some good. And then when you start doing it, you actually enjoy it while you're doing it, you know? But I completely get that you don't want to, when you're dealing with these things, you don't want to go in, you want to push it away, you don't want to think about things. It's about the escape from it as opposed to doing the work on it. So from that point of view, I would say focus just on gratitude because I think that that is the absolutely biggest changer. And it sounds like a weird thing to say if you're going through a difficult time, but writing out very simply three things that you're grateful for, even if it's just the words, even if there's not any explanation, but just actually writing three things that you're grateful for each day even at the worst of times, that can change the way that you feel, the way that you experience what you're actually going through. Um, it's something that I got into during lockdown when I just left, left the profession that I was in, left the permanent secure job, right before lockdown, and everything went tits up. And like at the wedding stationery business my husband and I had, suddenly there were no weddings. Everything was really, really difficult, and it seemed like this is the most difficult time I've ever really experienced. Um, Finding gratitude for things just seems bonkers at the moment. Like it's really, really difficult. But I started looking around and like really grateful for the colour of the walls and the fact that Richard and I painted it together, or just like small, small things. The coffee cup that I was having, the fact that the dogs and all sorts of different things, and it makes a difference. You're rewiring your brain to look for the positive instead of looking for the negative. And again, like the way that you deal with illness, it changes just how you cope. And that's the difference. We all experience the ups and downs and the highs and lows of life, but how we deal with it is what makes a difference.
Yeah, I remember the last time I was really unwell, in a flare. The mantra that kept using, well, two mantras that I kept using: "This too shall pass,"
Yeah.
and "All of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory."
Hmm.
Because it was like, right, how do I find those positive points in
Yeah.
this? How do I find, like, how do I stop feeling this pain? Because the more you focus on the pain or the whatever, that amplifies it.
Yeah.
Because where the attention goes, the energy flows.
Yeah.
How do you get? How do you get into that more positive mindset? So for
Hmm.
gratitude or having that, like, that be mantra, that positive mantra that you know that things are going to change. You don't know
Hmm.
when or how, but being able
Hmm.
to stay in that positive mindset is going to help you move
Yeah.
forward to it. Somebody else has come into mind when we're talking about this, and their resistance to doing any journaling, because we've had a conversation about it, is they're scared that somebody reads what they've written.
Oh, okay.
They're like, when they die, not even when they're still alive, when they die, they're scared that somebody
Yeah,
reads
right.
what they've written. And it's like, well, it won't matter because you'll be dead. So,
Yeah, I would say there's a lot to work through there if that's what the fear is. Yeah.
yeah. But then I
Ah,
suppose there's also that fear of maybe if a child's had a diary when they were younger and a parent or
yeah,
somebody's read their diary
yeah,
and exposed their vulnerabilities or secrets
yeah.
have come out around things that you think, oh, what would your thoughts around that be?
That's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because yeah, I remember actually finding diaries that I wrote as a teenager. laugh my head off at myself. It was hilarious. I seemed to be boy mad, which I hadn't really quite thought I was at that time. But anyway, seemed to be what I was obsessed about. But yes, I wouldn't really like my husband to find them. That said, I also would respect the fact that if he did find them, I know he wouldn't read them. So I think that throws up a lot of um, thinking about relationships, thinking about who's around you, who would break that respect for you, and if they would, is that a relationship that you should be in? You know, I mean, I know that goes a lot deeper than that. I get the point as well that it could be children and children might not have these kind of boundaries and they could pick something up. But I guess if you just have somewhere kind of safe to keep it, I think you've got to balance out the pros and the cons with it. You know, one of the women that's in the club, I've been working with her separately, and she's had a hell of a life. I mean, the trauma she's gone through is quite unbelievable. The fact she's still standing is just amazing. And she's used writing to get herself out of where she's been. And it's been an interesting one because, you know, every time we meet, I say I am not a therapist, I'm not anything like that whatsoever, but she's been through years of therapy and nothing's really helped, but she's been writing a lot. And the actual writing is what's really, really helping her. And one of her fears initially was that, you know, she's writing about people that are close to her, people that, you know, might, if anybody, you know, read this that were maybe part of it, then that would be a major problem because she is planning to publish as well, so it's a different side of things. But that said, she feels that the benefits that it's brought her far outweigh the fear of what somebody else might think. And I guess that's part of her journey into adulthood, isn't it? To not worry so much if somebody else does read something about us that, you know, they weren't invited to read, so, you know, it's not their place to do it. That's completely on them. That's got nothing to do with us. Their opinion of us has got nothing to do with us. And it's a
Yeah.
really difficult one to actually take on board because it sounds really stupid to say that, but it's true. We cannot control what other people think about us at all. We can only control what we think ourselves. And if we live in fear about other people's opinions or misguided judgments or whatever else, then we're only stunting our own growth, you know?
Yeah.
So that's maybe a wee bit harsh, but
Oh, but
my
it's
own
true.
take on it, yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
there's such valuable bits of information in there. Like if somebody did pick up your stuff and realise what it was and continue to read it, that is on
Yes,
them.
no
That's
problem, huh?
not on you.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Although
And
my husband has been part of the club and he's writing every day as well. So now you're making me think I'm going to go and have a look at what he's written, but I'm not. I won't.
what was I going to say there? A thought has run away from my brain. Doesn't matter. It'll probably come back if it's important. Um, there is a lot to be said about putting pen to paper rather than fingers on a keyboard.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Can you explain anything about what's going on there?
Not hugely, but I'll try. So for me, the keyboard idea feels less secure. There's something more private about physically handwriting. Um, And I think that the physical, the sensual nature of holding the pen and having the notebook and it all being about choice, you know, about what you're using and things, feels like you're in your own little bubble. Whereas I think as soon as you start typing, you are inviting the rest of the world in some ways, even if it is something that's a private document. Um, that said, we grew up at a time where we wrote, you know, in school and we wrote quite a lot. We do have to be conscious of generations coming up now who, I mean, when I left teaching in 2019, I would say probably about 60% of my classes used keyboards all the time for a variety of reasons, for dyslexia and various different reasons, and much of it misguided, but much of it was school doctrine. Um, so these were children that didn't really write. And actually, I was doing a corporate workshop a year or so ago with a kind of tech-based London company who were coming up to Glasgow in January for an away day, which is a bit mental, but anyway, that's what they were doing. So I was doing a workshop on mythology and turning it into modern storytelling and stuff with them. And at the end, I like to give out an evaluation form, and I think if you do it physically in a bit of paper and people write stuff, then you'll actually get a response from them. Whereas if it's online later, they'll forget. And what amazed me that this group of mainly 20s, 20-year-olds, early 30s maybe, about 30 of them or so, very intelligent, very, like the thinkers and movers and shakers in their fields kind of a thing, could barely write. Like we're struggling to write. And that made me think, this is something that's going to be a concern going forward. Um, because if you lose the motor skills of being able to hold a pen, then that is a concern for the future, isn't it? So I fear for generations coming up that they're not going to have that ability to actually write. And I think that they will lose something, you know?
Yeah,
That said, it's
it's
not a reason not to do it, because I mean, if you are typing, it's better than not doing anything. And also, it's, even just thinking about some prompts is a really good thing. Even if you don't write, just thinking is a step in the right direction as well, you know.
yes, yes. The I think well, I'm just thinking the other day the whole of Vodafone went down, right? So you couldn't
I know, it was
use the
terrifying.
internet. So what happens in future when the internet goes down and you physically have to do an alternative way to write a ticket or
Yeah.
write a check? I overlap. There's so many reasons why putting pen to paper, not just for journaling, but for actually
Uh-huh.
being able to write your message list,
hmm
write
hmm
such simple things that you just pick up a pen and paper. I mean, I've got hundreds of notebooks lying about my house and tons of pens.
hmm
And I do, if I've got a to-do list for work, I will physically write it out because if it's digital, it doesn't have that same
Doesn't connect in the same way.
connection
Yeah.
with me.
hmm
There's something definitely different about it.
hmm
And when you do write, there's something about that flow. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like you were saying earlier, when you tap into your unconscious mind, that just sometimes you could be writing and thinking, where are these words coming from? I've got friends that
Ah,
do that writing where they're channeling other people. Like,
ah,
like
yeah.
I've got a friend who lost her son, I think 20 years ago now, but she has conversations with him and and
Uh-huh.
she writes what he's telling her. And
Mm,
she says it's not even the same handwriting. It just
that's
it just
amazing.
happens. I can't remember, there's
hmm
a name for it. I can't remember what it's called, but um, they do that, and it's a way for them to connect to
hmm
other people that have passed, or to get into that unconscious mind, or to get into a way of thinking and expressing themselves that they maybe can't do verbally, or they can't do through their own thought process, so to speak, because they're tapping into something much, much deeper.
And I think that speaks to the fact that we don't know so many things, you know. We only know our conscious mind. We only know the very physical things that we can do just now, but there's so much else going on that we just don't know about. So yeah, maybe that is a kind of portal almost to going into that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much about the brain that they don't like.
Yeah.
They scratch the surface with the functions in the
Yeah.
brain. There's so
Yeah.
much that even in our lifetime they thought that the brain sent all the signals to the rest of the body to work, and now they understand that it's the rest of the body sending the signals up through the brain for it to be processed to come back out. Like
Oh, really?
your heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain does to the heart. The gut sends more
Really?
signals to the brain than to the heart. It's almost like a
Wow.
processing center rather than the action taker.
Ah, right, okay.
And then when they're starting to explore into your fascia, so fascia is your connective tissue that wraps
hmm
around every organ, every muscle, every bone, every vessel in your body.
hmm
Um, they're now understanding that that's got its own nervous system and that moves faster than the actual central nervous system, like the speed that information,
Really?
like it's
Wow.
the stuff that they're starting to uncover, and they're just like, oh, we don't actually know anything about the body.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? I mean, I knew about the gut-brain connection, but I didn't realize that was the same with like all organs, the heart, the fascia, everything.
Yeah,
Wow.
the heart's so much more. So you then think the
Wow.
simple act of picking up a pen, putting it between your fingers, what is
Uh-huh.
that? What is that network that's starting to
Mm-hmm.
fire up
Mm-hmm.
those connections? And if you start school and you get handed an iPad or whatever
Yeah.
technology that you're handing out, and you've never done that action,
Mm-hmm.
what what are all the functions in your body that then don't work?
Exactly,
Because it's
because
not being trained.
yeah, no, exactly. And I know it's a major problem in primary schools where you have children coming through who actually do not have the motor function of holding a pen. Therefore,
Mm.
difficult to hold a toothbrush, difficult to hold a paintbrush, so that kind of like idea of creation and expressive, behavior and things isn't there because actually physically can't do that because like anything else, you need to be trained from a young age, to be able to do it. And we can't imagine not being able to pick up a pen. Imagine not being able to eat with a knife and fork, like things like that. And
Hmm.
we're beginning to see that more and more as well when you see the way that food is changing. So it's got a knock-on effect in so many different areas of life. Yeah,
Yeah. And here we just thought we were going to talk about writing.
I know. Well, is it the core of everything?
I remember, like, my mum was a primary school teacher, so I remember before I even went to school, she was teaching me how to hold a pencil, how to start to make marks on paper.
Hmm.
Like, and I have, like, I'm having wee flashback memories of it being difficult to get that
Uh-huh.
to get control of how to make a circle and
Yeah,
how to then start doing your actual letters.
yeah.
Like, I have memories of that being really something you had to concentrate hard on.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. It is. And I mean I write all the time, but my cousin has a calligraphy box business. So I actually subscribed to that for a year. I haven't actually really started it yet, even though I've got the boxes for a year. But anyway, I do plan to do it. But the idea is like actually just being more in touch with the physical side of what you're doing instead of it always being in your mind or on a screen, and I think that the benefits are amazing. And I suppose that's meditative. That's the way that she refers to it when you just go into that kind of trance-like state, almost just, repeating the same letters or the same whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. What got you into writing initially?
I don't actually know. I just think I always have. I think it's just always been a part of me. I was always writing wee stories when I was young. I was always do you know that actually that just takes me completely back into a flashback of I used to spend weekends with my gran and grandpa quite often, and they were amazing. And I used to go into their bed on a Saturday morning, and my grandpa would make up all these stories about jungles, and there was all these different animals in the jungles and things, and I can't really remember any of the details of any of them, but I remembered like I just loved it. He would just talk, just in his head, talk about these stories for so long. And my dad is quite artistic, and I had this kind of wardrobe in my room when I was really wee, and he sketched out an entire scene of like woodland animals and all sorts of different things and that. So I think probably in my very early years, I was surrounded by the idea of storytelling and creativity and how it all fits together, kind of thing. So I think it was just always there, always there from a young age. And then I did, as we found out, those diaries, write pages and pages every single night, when I was younger as well. And I just always loved the writing side of things. So then when I went on to become a teacher, there was a big move in English teaching to really just have personal writing. Although creative writing is important, you didn't need to have it in folios or exams anymore. You could do personal instead, and I always pushed against that because I think going into the imagination, being creative as much as you can has far more benefit. So I was always the one that would be pushing the actual creative writing side of things as well. So, but that's an interesting one. I hadn't really connected it all together before. But yeah, I think it comes from my grandpa and my dad. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Interesting you say that about at school. I always opted for the personal writing.
Hmm.
I really could not, like,
Hmm.
creative writing. It's like there is a man walked into a house. It was
It's
dead
see,
tilted. And so I would always go to the discursive,
yeah,
like that kind of style of writing, like my essays for my final exams and stuff like that in fifth year, where I took the discursive option
yeah.
rather than the creative, because I would listen to other people and be like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know how your brain does that.
Mm. I would go with that in an exam situation, but being creative on demand, I think, is really difficult. I've always kind of felt that about like art exams and things as well. Um, but I would counter what you said with how much you were taught how to be creative. So that's part of the problem because if you're just told to write a story, then of course you're going to struggle with it. It's all the different ways in. I actually run a creative writing club at night, a couple of times a month, and it's just about little prompts. It's a way in to being able to write creatively. So it's not ever write a story on whatever. It's we'll be looking at creating a character through the props that are surrounding them, and I'll be giving out a whole load of props that's a prompt basically, and then people can actually start visualizing that character, because if they've got all these diverse and strange things around them, what's it saying about who they are? And suddenly that's a way into finding a character, do you know? So people will come saying, oh, I've not written since school, or I can't write creatively, I just want to try something different. And then they'll leave with like, oh, I've got an idea for a story that I might actually go and write now, you know? And I think that's quite fascinating. So with these things, it's like anything, if somebody gives you a paintbrush and tells you to paint, you're not going to be able to paint. But if somebody gives you a way in, then you can do it. Because I do believe that there is an ability to write creatively in everyone, you know. I believe the same, from an artistic point of view as well. I feel I have zero talent, but I also feel it's something I'd like to develop at some point and find somebody who can show me a way in to find that way too.
I remember seeing your picture at Splatter Art. It was great.
Oh, it was shocking. It was so bad.
What I was going to say before I made that comment was that says a lot about you as a teacher,
Mm,
and says a lot about the teachers that I must have had
hmm
through the years, because I remember my English teacher in third and fourth year was mental. Like,
mm.
one minute he'd be sitting laughing and joking, and the next minute he'd be throwing a desk across the class, like in a mad rage.
Nice.
So you,
Wow.
you were always kind of on edge of what kind of mood
Yeah.
he's going to be in. And
Yeah.
then they always just got you to read. They were
hmm
always given books, read and discuss the reading, read and discuss read and discuss the story, read and discuss the story. There was never that
hmm
practice of writing. So
Yeah.
their methods of teaching in my school, I mean, it was a jungle at the
hmm
time that I was there, because my cousin was telling me recently that the head
hmm
teacher who'd been there the year before I started at the high school had stolen
hmm
all the ski aff money. He had been sacked. The guy who then came in was a nice man. He didn't know how
Mm.
to control the place. So for the 5 years that he was the head teacher of the school went wild.
Yeah.
And the teachers probably were all feeling the brunt of that and just trying to get through their days. So therefore they weren't able to really teach, because they were in survival mode. And that put all of us in survival mode. And
Yeah.
wasn't a nice environment for anybody to learn.
And
So
yeah, also that if discipline's an issue in a class, it's easier to discipline a class who are all meant to be being quiet, and reading, than it is to discipline a class who are taking part in different activities and doing different things. So that can be part of it as well. Yeah. I think yeah, don't get me started on the state of education in this system, because that's a whole other podcast and we would need at least a couple of weeks on that. But yeah, it's a major problem.
yeah. But the good news is there are people like yourself out there who are inviting people to return to
Mm.
missed opportunities or missed education, or
Yeah.
whatever walk of life you're in just now, whatever your life experiences are just now, there's that opportunity to circle back
Yeah.
and to start exploring it no matter what age you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just a wee peak of interest of maybe I can, and then for somebody like yourself who's
Yeah.
clearly very passionate about it. Because just when you were talking about the character thing there, I remember being at a workshop with you, and was it
Right.
in,
Yeah.
was it in Virgin Money?
It
And
was.
then
Yeah. One of the first ones. Uh-huh.
quite early on, and because
Uh-huh.
just when you started saying about building the character, I was like, hang on a wee minute, I think I've done that with you.
Yeah, you may well have done.
Yeah, yeah. And I know we worked together previously about how to structure
hmm
um, social media posts and stuff like that to help try
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
encourage people to be interested in business.
Yeah. Your ideal client and all that. Yeah. Messaging.
which
Yeah.
is which is another part of the things that you do.
Uh-huh.
If you were to wave a magic wand, what would be your ideal teaching scenario?
Um, in what way? What do you mean? Like
Like,
the
what would you teach? How would you teach? Who would you teach?
All right, I see. It's funny using the word teach, because it's a word that I'm trying to move away from, because I think it has the connotations in my head of Um, I'm the expert. I know all the answers. You've just got to listen to me and I'll tell you them, which is absolutely not what the word means and not what it should means, but it still has that kind of connotation in my head in some ways. So I think it's about being able to create an environment where the people feel safe enough to totally express themselves and know that they'll only ever be, celebrated and not ever condemned for what they're saying, not ever judged for what they're saying. So no matter what's being said, it'll always be, it'll lead to something positive, So I think safety is probably at the core of what I want people to feel. Because as you talked about that situation in your classroom, you're clearly were feeling a bit unsafe because the man was erratic and, that should never come across to a pupil in any shape or form. That should never come across. A pupil should always feel safe. And I know that that doesn't happen. I know that that's a major issue. I know, controversially, there are some teachers that seem to be there for the power trip, which is something I've experienced quite a lot over the years, which is a really worrying situation. Um, yeah, safety. It all comes back to safety. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I suppose you need to feel safe to even be able to put that pen to paper
Yeah.
in the first place.
Yeah,
It
which
comes to
which links
that.
back to journaling, doesn't it? And feeling safe to be able to write and know that you're in a safe position. And I guess that's why I feel it's that bigger picture of if you don't feel safe to write in your own home, then there is something to think about. Um, I would suggest journaling on it, but then that's you're going round in a circle then when you
What would then be, so let's say somebody is feeling fearful of putting pen to paper.
Mhm.
What would be the first prompt that you would get them to think about to try and help them get into that space where they do feel a wee bit more confident or a wee bit more secure in being able to pick up a pen? Is there a prompt that you would get them to start thinking about?
I think it would go back to that one about gratitude, the three things that you're grateful for, because that could be, that doesn't have to have any depth to it. As I said, it could be a particular coffee mug, it could be like, I'm really grateful for Dr. Organics and the lip balm because I'm always using it kind of thing. It can be anything small so it doesn't feel unsafe if anyone. Um, with the journaling club, what I try and do is I start quite light, and it's more kind of fun, jokey type things. But as we're progressing, I'm beginning to get a few that are a bit deeper and a bit more probing and things, but then lighten it up the next day, so it's a definite path that people are on. Um, but yeah, as a way to start, I would say, yeah, gratitude. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And physically
And,
putting
and
pen to paper.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, if there really was a real concern about not feeling safe enough, I would think have some questions in place and just think about them, even if you don't write about them, but just thinking about them because it's all part of the journey, and it's not that you reach the place that you want to be on day one. It's progress, and just by starting to think about it could give you potentially the strength to be able to then write about it. So if you said to yourself, I'm going to think about prompts for the next month, I'm not going to write anything at all. And then after a month, one day a week, I might start writing on it, do you know, and just really ease into it that way. Because I think probably mainly people would find that it was a fear that they didn't need to have. Nothing bad is going to happen if they do write it down. But I appreciate it can take steps to get there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And what about the fear of the success of what could happen?
Well,
Would
that's a
that
major, I mean, that's a major, major thing as well. That if you are in a situation where you might not be in all that happy a relationship, or, things might be, you might not like your job, or all sorts of different things, then the more inner work that you do, yeah, it might lead to you realize that and you start making steps to move away from it. So there is a fear of that, but I would always counter that with it's a bigger fear to stay in a life that's not the life that's meant for you. You know, we've probably all done that at some point. We've been. I definitely stayed in teaching longer than I should have done from the fear of. I mean, I always enjoyed it, but there was a real fear of, but what would I do if I left? What would I actually do? Because you get that sense of like this is what you are, this is what you do, and there's nothing else that you can do, and it's ridiculous because there's so many transferable skills, but the same kind of a thing. And people can stay in relationships because, well, this is who I'm with, and this is our relationship, even though they haven't really spoken to each other about anything apart from TV and what's for dinner for like a year. So it's that kind of a thing. If it does highlight that there are areas, then maybe it's worth looking at those areas. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I can
and
understand the fear of not addressing that. Yeah.
yeah. And there's also, for some people, I'm just thinking about for people that are maybe doing it from a well-being perspective,
Hmm.
sometimes it's safer to know that you're a sick person than what the possibility of being a healthier person is.
Mm,
Because I've worked with quite a few charities, and through conversation, you can see some people that are just, they're happy to see the doctor, take the medication, and
hmm.
that's enough. They don't want to
Hmm.
explore other opportunities because who are they if they're not a sick person? Who are
Yeah,
they if they're not being looked after because their needs are being met in some way?
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
if you then become better or well or less reliant on other people,
Hmm.
then how do you know that they're still going to be there for you?
Yeah, that's so true.
But then I can come back to that unhealthy relationship of, well, do they need you to be ill so that they feel needed? And there can be a wee spiral in there.
Yeah, yeah,
But
because it leads to codependency, doesn't it, as well? You can be codependent on an illness as much as you can be codependent on a person. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that when I was at the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine conference last
Mm-hmm.
month, speaking to doctors, a lot of doctors just assume that patients want to be ill and that they're happy just to take the drug and not do anything else. Like they don't have conversations with them about anything else that they could possibly do. And if
Mm-hmm.
they were able to say, have you thought about journaling to find out what's going on inside? Or can you sit outside for 5 minutes in a day just to get some fresh air and some natural sunlight in your eyes? Like they don't even have these conversations because they're scared to.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, but you're the person that went to uni and you're
I
the
know.
person, quote unquote, the smart person in the room. Like
Yeah.
you need to have these bigger conversations with your patients because one, it makes them feel seen
Mm-hmm.
as a human, not just as a health condition,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also
Mm-hmm.
helping
Major,
them.
that one. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we both experienced that, and I
Yeah.
imagine many times. Also helping them see that they're a human, not a sick person.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then how can you then use millions, there's millions of different tools. How can you use all of these tools to help you be in a better place of better health?
Yeah, I mean, we've had the conversation before, and the NHS is amazing in lots of different ways, but equally it is set up to treat illness. There's not really very much preventative work going on there at all, and I think that that has to be societal. I believe we should be having mindset and journaling classes in schools from primary school all the way up. I think we need to be bringing these kind of things in. From a nutrition point of view, you probably feel the same, that we should be looking at nutrition from a much earlier age. It's the same in the NHS. I wish that there was more of it's the inquiring intellect, it's that gets me as well. That, you've gone through school, you've got your 6 A's, you've gone to medical school, you've got all these things, and yes, I totally appreciate that the pressure and the time and the workload and all that stuff must be horrendous. But you would just think if you were passionate enough about your subject to go through all of that study, that you would still care about looking at what's coming up, what other people are talking about, different things that can help. You probably know and listen to Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, do you?
Yes.
I love him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a medical GP and stuff, but when you hear him speak, he's so interested in all of the other things that can actually help his patients. And every time I hear him, I think, oh, I so wish I could be in his practice. To have a GP like that would be just absolutely amazing. And it's a shame that he's few and far between. I would hope that that begins to change, but I don't really see much of a sign of it, you know?
yeah. It's almost like the curiosity has been removed from them, and I'm just thinking
Oh,
that your business name is the Curious
yeah,
Wolf, and
yeah.
that creativity comes from being curious about different things.
Yes.
So that you can then start going, oh, what else? What else?
Yeah.
Because there's so much more. There is so much,
Yeah.
like, to think that you know everything about. this one thing, so therefore you know everything about everything. You're like, no,
Yeah.
let's. And I think I was watching. There used to be a series. I haven't had a TV for a long, long time, but on one of the Virgin Media channels, there was a class called Master Classes, and they
Uh-huh.
would have like Oprah doing an hour and
Mm.
Dr. Paul doing an hour and Justin Timberlake doing an hour, and I
Mm.
can't remember who it was, but I remember watching one of them and one of them saying, approach everything with a beginner's mindset, always
Yeah.
be curious. And
Yeah.
that really stuck with me, and I was like, oh yeah. Every massage client I have, even
Hmm.
if they've been to me loads and loads of times, I still meet their body like it's
Hmm.
the first time to see what's going
Yeah.
on in the day. Because if I assume that I already know,
Yeah.
then I'm going to miss something. And
Absolutely. You're so right. Yeah.
same when I'm teaching a Pilates class or a yoga class, it's like be curious about what your body's telling you today.
Yeah.
How are you moving today? What feels good? What doesn't feel so good? Let's explore that. Let's play around with
Hmm.
that. And I
Hmm.
imagine that's going to be the same when it comes to
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
Is be curious about what comes through today.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And meeting every day with like no matter what you do today, somebody will teach you something will teach you something, even if it's a tree, whatever it is, that be open to that, be open to not knowing everything all the time, be open to understanding and listening and hearing and just, yeah, taking it all in. Hmm.
The word that's coming to me there is play. That
Yeah,
we,
like,
I feel like we've lost a lot of playfulness in life,
uh-huh, uh-huh, yeah.
and can we let go of some of that serious being a grown up stuff?
Yeah. Oh no, you're right. You're so right. And I love that about my writing club because the one I've got, I did it in Stewarton and Glasgow, but the one in Stewarton's been going for longer. So the people that come there, it's been, I think we're on our 7th month now. So the people that come there's like a core group that come every time, so they know each other quite well now, which is lovely. And they just have such a laugh. It's amazing. And that's what they're doing. They're playing. They're playing with ideas and coming up with all these stories and sharing things. These are people that didn't want to share anything and heads were down, in the first couple of months. And just like making themselves and each other laugh. And I think, yes, play is so important, but so is just laughing. So is just doing things that you're completely in the moment and just laughing. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and that's like a big part of nervous system regulation.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my exploration of why have I got chronic illness and the polyvagal theory, which is about how the vagus nerve influences so much of what goes on in your body. And
Mm.
Stephen Porges, who has been exploring this since the 60s, has said a big part of it is play. Like if you watch animals,
Mhm.
animals learn through play, children learn
Uh-huh.
through play. As you
Yeah.
become an adult, you stop playing so much, you become serious. Then your
Mhm.
nervous system gets stuck in this fight and flight all the time. You're sympathetically driven because you're always in action. When you
Mhm.
go into play, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, and that's where you get to be in rest and digest and heal.
Right. Okay. I'm going to put that on my page for the, the writing club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see that. And Gabor Mate talks about that, and
Oh, I love him.
for healing trauma is
Mhm.
finding ways to play, because that's where your body's going to be able to learn to let go of it. And
Mhm.
play is going to be different for everybody. For some people, it'll be running about playing tag or playing a football game or whatever. But play is also any form of creativity. So that can you be
Mhm.
playful when it
Mhm.
comes to writing,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that it helps you get into that different part of your nervous system to help your body heal.
Yeah, and that goes back to like going into something without knowing what the outcome's going to be. And maybe that's part of the fundamental nature of play that we spend our lives like, I'm doing this because of that. I'm going to get here. I'm going to do that, and that's the way we spend our lives. So maybe that's the key, isn't it? With play, with writing, with anything, just do it without knowing where it's going to lead you to, and just be in that moment while you're there. Yeah.
It's like you're not writing to write a book, you're writing for
No.
the joy of
Uh-huh.
writing.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah.
Suzanne, you've
Huh?
inspired me.
I know you too. Me. It's been fascinating. Such an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it is. And I'm very aware that you have something else to be going on to in a few minutes. So, anybody who's interested in your journal club, your creative writing thing, where is the best place for people to find out what's going on that you're guiding them through?
My website probably has got everything on it. So my website or my Instagram channel, there's like links there to everything as well. So the website is thecuriouswolf.co.uk and Instagram is at the.curiouswolf.
Yeah, I'll put those links into the show notes. Is there anything else that you want to say or have a quick chat about before we finish this up?
No, I think basically just if you are thinking about journaling, just give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? Just give it a go. If people used to say it takes 28 days to build a new habit. I think it's 60 days now, isn't it? I think that's the key. But it's one of these things of if you just do it, don't overthink it. Don't tell yourself you've got to write a page a day. Don't tell yourself you've got to write every single day, but just make a commitment to yourself that you'll write a couple of lines most days. Um, and I think you'll probably find that you'll notice a difference. You'll begin to notice a difference about how you're responding to life, how you're responding to things that happen to you. Um, and you'll actually realize that you quite enjoy it. And it's something that becomes maybe it changes from being like a task or a chore or a thing you should do. Again, using that word should deliberately, to something that actually you look forward to and you really enjoy, and it's something that is yours and completely yours. And that's something we don't have an awful lot of either. But it's important to remember that no matter what families we're in and all the rest of it, fundamentally we are our own person, and finding that person is important.
Yeah. And buy this is like permission to go out and buy yourself a nice pen and a nice notepad.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
actually write in the notepad, don't keep the notepad good.
Yes, don't keep it good. Write on it in day one. In fact, make a mess of it in day one and just, do a couple of squiggly lines or something like that. Break that whole barrier to something's got to be kept for good. You're only alive now, so use everything now.
Yes. Yes. So make sure that you are following Suzanne and remember to please like, share, subscribe, all that fancy stuff. And thank you very much for joining us. And I will see you on the next podcast.
Thank you.